Breaking tonight, a former employee at the Department of Homeland Security is blowing the whistle, contending that his superiors shut down a program that might have provided an early warning on the terrorists behind last week's attack in California. We will speak with him in a moment. But first to Trace Gallagher with the backstory. Trace?
Megan, for background, we should note in the early 2000s, Philip Haney was among the founding members of the Department of Homeland Security and was later assigned to the Intelligence Review Unit, or IRU. His job was to investigate individuals with potential links to terrorism, and it was in that capacity that Haney says he noticed a trend of people with suspected radicalized ties coming into the United States. So he began looking into a collection of global networks that were infiltrating radical Islamists into the U.S. In other words, Haney and his team were getting somewhere. But a year into that investigation, Haney says they got a visit from the State Department and the Homeland Security Civil Rights Division, who said that tracking these groups and individuals was, quote, problematic because they were Islamic groups. Haney says the investigation was shut down and 67 of his records deleted. Among them, an investigation into an organization with ties to the mosque in Riverside that San Bernardino terrorist Saeed Farouk attended. Haney believes if his work had been allowed to continue, it may have thwarted last week's attack. Haney says a few years ago he notified Congress and the DHS Inspector General about the investigation into Islamic groups being terminated, but instead of the investigation being reinstated, Haney claims his superiors retaliated, pulling him from his duties and revoking his security clearance. We just got off the phone with Homeland Security. They told us there are many holes in Mr. Haney's story, but they couldn't comment further because of privacy laws. Megan.
Trace, thank you. Joining me now with more, former Department of Homeland Security employee Philip Haney, and with reaction, Mark Thiessen, the former chief presidential speechwriter for President George W. Bush and a Fox News contributor. Thank you both for being here. Philip, why do you believe that the work you were pursuing may have led to the detection of these two?
The network of individuals that we worked with were tied to a large group called Tablighi Jamaat, part of a larger group called Deobandi. We had thousands of organizations or individuals in the database, and we tracked them as they moved in and out of the United States on the visa waiver program. That's what first brought the group to our attention. And as we developed the case and started putting the pieces in place, we gained more and more evidence of their activities.
And they were connected to Farouk's mosque?
The Farouk Mosque is called Dar Uloom. It's a global network of similar kinds of mosques under the umbrella of this organization.
And so under your program, you would have identified the mosque and done what?
I can tell you how I would have identified it, because individuals that were already in the case in 2012 went to that mosque. Therefore, as we were tracking them, we would have put the red light on them. Therefore, two things very plausibly would have happened. Either Syed would have been put on the no-fly list because of association with that masjid, and/or the K-1 visa that his wife was given may have been denied because of his affiliation with a known organization.
And you say they shut you down because they felt this was essentially profiling of Muslims.
They specifically said that because we FOIA'd the case. And we got the internal memos, and it says that we are not allowed to develop a case based on Tablighi Jamaat specifically and/or any Islamic group.
I mean, we're not talking about peace-loving Muslims who are in the United States who have assimilated. We're talking about Islamists who believe in Sharia and much worse.
Yes, the correct term is Salafi. It means original. They go back to the way Islam used to be at the very beginning. Everybody in the world outside of America knows about the Deobandis, i.e. the Tablighi Jamaat group. We don't know as much about them here yet, but that was exactly the organization that I worked with. We started the case 6 years prior. Then I came to the National Targeting Center and worked on that case specifically. Then I went back to my home port, and I discovered that as soon as I left, they shut the case down. By the way, they gave me a commendation letter for finding 300 terrorists related specifically to the initiative.
Mark, we've seen the dismantling of the intelligence we had set up in the Iraq area. after we took over there. We've seen the CIA black sites where we interrogated terrorists. That's done.
Yep.
They just further eroded our abilities to interrogate terrorists on Capitol Hill.
That's right.
One after the other. We're seeing, I mean, the president holding don't discriminate against Muslims up on equal footing to we don't want any more terror attacks. Right? I'm not saying discrimination is a good thing, but what we've seen in the numbers doesn't match up to what the terror threat right now. And it has people feeling very disconcerted.
Absolutely, and it's political correctness run amok. If this is true that the Department of Homeland Security actually shut down an investigation that could have stopped this terrorist attack because they didn't want to profile a Muslim group, this mosque, that's political correctness run amok. And we've seen this. We've had a president who is willing to condemn gun violence but is unwilling to say the words Islamic radicalism. We just saw in this case that the neighbors of Farouk and Malik were afraid to turn them in, even though they saw suspicious activity, because they didn't want to be called Islamophobes. Political correctness kills, and we are in a miasma of political correctness in this country today, and it's got to stop.
And the administration doesn't even understand why people are a little reluctant to let 10,000 Syrian refugees come into the country when, you know, we can't even keep the one woman who is obviously tied to radicals abroad was let in with no problems.
No, that's exactly right. And look, the president says that we're betraying American values. Republicans are, because they don't want to let in 10,000 Syrian refugees. They said they're mostly women and children. Well, this is a woman with a six-month-old child who just killed 16 people. I mean, so Republicans raise legitimate security concerns, and they're basically accused of being anti-Muslim bigots. This is deadly stuff. It's got to stop.
The people are not against Muslims. They are against radical Muslims and those who affiliate with the Sharia and Salafi, who could potentially be problematic. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks, Megan.
There was another terrorist attack on U.S. soil. Have you heard about it? It's next.